we know that he has been in communication with U.S. and U.K. with regards to the intelligence, and no more planes will be coming or going from Russia into Egypt. I was asking Paul Cruikshank, I'm curious what your response will be. What's Putin's next move?
Putin's next move is going to be to try to figure out both how he approaches the Russian people with this story, because at first, of course, they were saying, let's not jump to conclusions. At some point, I think the Russians are going to decide, the Russian population is going to decide, well, we've come to our own conclusion here based on all these obvious facts. And there's a momentum to these data points that point in the direction of this being terrorism, and it's quite obvious, and I don't think they'll believe some conspiracy theories, as often is the case in Russia. They do tend to, the general population tends to buy into that sort of thing. So I think that he's going to have to figure out, well, how do I sort of approach my own people with this? What's the story that we go with? But also it's going to mean that there's a doubling down in Syria, which is already occurring, by the way. You have some reports that you've gone from 2,000 to 4,000 boots on, or soldiers on the ground, I should say, in Syria that are Russian. That number is going to get even larger. They're preparing for major offensives. They're deploying artillery. And now I think Putin's going to say that there's going to be a public consensus to do more of that. And that would be the expectation, I think. Whether that's true or not, we'll have to see. But that'll be the assumption that he's acting under. Because in the past, as we know, based on what happened even in Chechnya, during the second Chechen incursion, there was a terrorist act, and then there was a major incursion to root out that terrorism. That's the Russian playbook. I think we can expect that to play out here in very much the same way.
What about, looking at you and thinking about airport security? We already were talking earlier in the show about TSA. Now there will be enhanced screenings from, and it's vague, but from certain airports overseas incoming to the United States. Beyond that, how will this affect the rest of us?
Well, there's going to be a lot more scrutiny. I mean, Brooke, after September 11th, we started to shore up all the holes to the extent that we could. I mean, we brought air marshals into the picture. We brought volunteer pilots with the Federal Flight Deck Officer program. We're protecting the interior of the airplane. My fear has always been the vulnerability of what can be brought on via cargo, via catering, and all the external people. It's hard to control that.
We go through all these lines and all these checks, and you look at the gun running scheme, right, between New York and Atlanta. If you can get guns on these planes over and over, there clearly are vulnerabilities for people who are working at the airports, domestically or overseas.
And they're one step ahead of us, and it might turn out to be a simple device that we find on this airplane.
Okay. Dick Marquise, thank you so much. Les Sabin, Bob Sexton, thank you very much. And we're going to take a quick break. Keep it here. CNN Special Live coverage after this.